Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a stack of sources that offer a truly unique and, frankly, pretty astonishing perspective on something many of us engage with or see around us every day.
Right.
Video games. We often think we know a lot about them, right? But what if there's a whole other layer at play? Something deeper?
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that our sources today aren't your typical scientific papers or, news articles. They actually come from a session where information about video games was sought from an esoteric perspective, tapping into what's described as a deeper level of understanding.
An esoteric perspective. How was that information obtained?
Well, it was through a specific type of hypnotic state. It's known as the Grifasi Method. For those unfamiliar, the Grifasi Method is, well, basically a form of hypnotic regression. It's designed to access subconscious or maybe even higher level information.
Right. So quite different from standard research. So what does this all mean for you listening in? Our mission, really, is to extract the surprising nuggets of knowledge from this material. We're going to explore the origins of video games as these sources see them, their energetic and psychological impacts, the subtle mechanisms behind addiction.
And even the entities reportedly involved. It's quite a lot.
Definitely. All through this very specific, non-conventional lens, we want to help you understand the profound implications of these intriguing claims and, well, give you a shortcut to being well-informed on this pretty unusual topic. All right, so let's start right at the very beginning. Many of us just assume video games are purely human inventions, right? A flash of inspiration in some programmer's mind. But what did our sources actually reveal about their true genesis?
Yeah, this is where it gets surprising, maybe even a bit startling. The sources state pretty clearly that the initial idea, the inspiration for video games, didn't come solely from human ingenuity. Instead, they described this initial image of an artificial tunnel and an AI being watching through that tunnel the humans.
An AI watching humans through a tunnel, wow.
And the deeper claim is that the concept itself was inspired by entities from extraterrestrial races beings working in connection with AI programs.
Whoa, okay. So entities and AI programs involved from the start. That's quite a claim. Not entirely human, then.
That's what the sources suggest.
And what else do they say about these entities?
They're described as extremely advanced in technology, and interestingly, creating AI in video games is apparently what they do the best.
What they do best. So they're specialists in this.
From this perspective, yeah. They're presented as essentially the masterminds behind it all, sort of pushing these concepts into our reality.
Okay. So from this esoteric genesis, let's jump straight into the immediate impact on us, the players. What did the sources reveal about the energetic effects? Like, what happens when you actually engage with video games?
Right. The core insight here is that video games aren't just, consuming your time. They're said to actively fragment your energetic field.
Fragment it.
Yeah, like literally poking holes in your spiritual integrity, if you want to put it that way. The sources indicate that even after just 1 hour of playing, there's a noticeable vibrational effect. It's described as creating little spaces, little holes, in what's called the oneness and wholeness of the energetical body.
The energetical body, like an aura.
Sort of, yeah. Think of it as your aura or your spiritual field, usually a cohesive energy container. Playing games starts to break that cohesion.
Okay, little holes. And what happens as you, continue to play? Do they get bigger?
Exactly. As playtime increases, these spaces are said to grow larger, leading to a significant imbalance on the energetical level. And this disturbance apparently goes deeper, affecting all levels. It ultimately breaks the unity of that energetic body.
Breaks the unity. What does that mean for the person?
Well, it disconnects the person. It makes them energetically dissipated, is the term used, and open to the outside.
Open to the outside, like vulnerable.
Yes, vulnerable to draw in unhelpful external energies, things that are not beneficial.
Right.
It's presented as a really profound disruption to one's energetic well-being.
Okay, that's the energetic side. Now, our deep dive also reveals some pretty profound effects on the mind. How does regular immersion in video games reportedly impact our subconscious and consciousness?
Right. So the sources describe a process where the subconscious actually slows down. It starts running at a lower pace or rhythm. And it essentially gets pushed away from the conscious mind.
Pushed away, so you become less aware of it.
Pretty much. The consequence described is that the person lives more only with his rational mind. They become largely unaware of those deeper layers within themselves, like strong qualities or maybe hidden fears stored in the subconscious.
So it's almost like living on autopilot, or?
Exactly. The description given is of someone living life on a more robotic, like AI level.
Wow. Robotic.
And what's also highlighted is the subliminal part of hardcore players. The deep, unconscious layers of their mind operating beneath conscious awareness. That part is said to be pushed away and basically placed in a corner. The person becomes not even aware of any signals coming from it.
That sounds like a really deep level of disconnection from yourself, but is there any nuance here? Or is this said to happen to absolutely everyone who plays regularly?
There is a crucial nuance mentioned, yeah. Some hardcore players, especially those with a naturally stronger mental body and energetical body, might still feel impulses from their subconscious. They might understand it's just an experience and feel they can actually stop playing whenever they want.
Ah.
And this indicates, from the source's perspective, that they are not completely addicted from a very deep level. So yeah, there's definitely a spectrum involved.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's turn to a particularly compelling claim about how addiction is engineered into these games. The sources make a really bold assertion. Absolutely all video games include elements designed specifically to induce addiction. This isn't accidental, is it?
Not according to these sources, no. It's presented as entirely deliberate design. One key component they mention is something called subliminal noise.
Subliminal noise?
Yeah, vibrational sound that the gamer doesn't consciously hear. This sound is reportedly designed to create a kind of hunger feeling, making players perpetually unsatisfied, always wanting more, keeping them insociated all the time.
Insociated, meaning constantly drawn back in.
Kind of drawn in and never quite fulfilled.
And it goes beyond just the subliminal sound, right?
Oh, absolutely. The whole construction of video games, including the very common level idea, is said to serve this exact purpose. The explanation given is that levels offer greater challenges, more elements, more attractions, which naturally incites players to go deeper and, well, play more.
Sure, that seems logical on the surface.
Right, but the sources state that players are actually cheated. They're never really getting anywhere meaningful, only distracting his mind. It's reinforced that these games don't intend to bring any good, any benefits, in a deeper sense. The only goal is to keep you keep you hooked.
So it's engineered as a perpetual loop of unfulfillment, basically.
Precisely, and there's more. When someone gets deeply involved, the whole process is described as acting like a hypnosis.
Like hypnosis, how so?
Well, this hypnotic state makes it easier for other subliminal messages, things like short words acting like orders, to get into the subconscious mind. And this programming apparently extends beyond just fostering addiction. It's also about disconnecting the person from himself and creating internal disturbances, lack of harmony.
Okay, wow. Given these potentially deep impacts, let's talk about specific types of games. Our sources pointed to shooting games as having some particularly alarming effects. What did they reveal about those specifically?
Yeah, they singled those out. The primary effect highlighted for shooting games is a profound lack of empathy. This is described as a really crucial effect because it disconnects individuals from their emotional body.
Lack of empathy. That is serious.
Extremely. The source provides some vivid examples, like a teenager who doesn't have any remorse after committing a crime because for them, everything is a game.
That's chilling, a complete blurring of lines.
It is, and it warns about the potential to create real psychopaths or at least sociopaths.
And what about the impact on the mind itself and the energy?
On the mind, the description is quite stark. It says mental activity is reducing, and it even talks about cuttings between the neuronal synapses, basically simplifying brain connections, guiding them in a labyrinth.
Simplifying connections, so less complex thought.
Yeah, reducing creativity, pushing individuals towards living purely by basic primary instincts. And energetically, the state described is an aggressive vibrance, a feeling of literally shaking with aggression, colored with nuances of red.
Nuances of red.
Which leads to, nervousness, irritation, and being very easy to burst into tears or aggression, just very volatile.
This sounds incredibly intense. Okay, so let's shift then to the more direct involvement mentioned.
Yep.
The interferences. These are the entities reportedly behind the games. The sources actually name types like the reptiloid race, humanoids, and draconoids. What are they like, according to the sources, and what's their ultimate goal?
They're described as huge, very intelligent, and crucially, their focus is on making people as addicted as possible.
Addicted to drain energy.
That seems to be the core mechanism. This is where the energetic and psychological impacts we've discussed really converge. Because the interference itself is said to take place through that disconnection between the bodies, the mind, the subconscious, the emotional body.
Ah, so the energy fragmentation, the holes we talked about earlier, that creates the opening for them.
Exactly. That split creates these unguarded and unprotected spaces within the individual. It essentially opens a gate, as the source puts, to the entities, allowing them to install himself on that hidden space.
Install themselves, like they
Yeah.
take up residence.
That's the implication. And the mechanism of energy collection is described as these entities continuously sucking out energy from these forgotten spaces within the person, spaces which are suffering and crying for validation.
Goodness, sucking energy.
And for heavily addicted players, it gets even more complex. A network of energetic implants, think of them like energetic constructs, almost like spiritual spyware apparently activates. This network transfers and modulates energy, harvesting it for the entity's own survival and power.
Wow, energetic implants. And do different types of entities specialize in different kinds of games?
Yes, the sources mention that. For instance, draconoids are said to be responsible for the aggressive games, the shooting games we discussed. And humanoids are linked more to strategic ones. But the common goal across the board for all of them is always addiction.
Right. Given all of this, it really begs the question, why are some people seemingly more susceptible to these effects or to addiction itself? Do the sources talk about predispositions?
Yes, they definitely do. They discuss things like genetical predispositions and also inherited weak points on the energetic level. And from this particular esoteric point of view, these predispositions can be interpreted as sort of better connection or resonance with certain races of entities depending on the individual's specific vulnerabilities.
Vulnerabilities, like what?
Well, for instance, someone with underlying anger might be drawn more easily towards aggressive games, which connects them to, say, draconoids. Or someone with narcissistic tendencies might gravitate towards strategic games, linking them with the humanoids mentioned. The example given is of a teenager who lacks trust and positive emotions. For them, games become a refuge, almost like a close friend, a way to escape from the reality they find difficult.
So it's about the game seemingly filling a pre-existing void or answering a vulnerability.
Precisely. That's how it hooks them. However, there's a really crucial distinction made, especially concerning adults. For an adult who is consciously mastering their time, maybe using games specifically for, say, enhancing strategic intelligence or stimulating neuronal pathways.
Like brain training, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's seen as completely another thing. It's not forbidden, as the source puts it. The real danger lies in losing dominion over the activity.
Losing dominion, meaning when the game starts to control the person instead of the other way around.
That's exactly it. When you lose control over your engagement with it.
Okay, that's a very important distinction. So if someone is playing or maybe is heavily involved, how can you actually tell the difference between a healthy individual, someone who's maybe managing their play okay, and a hardcore player who's lost that dominion? What does that look like from this esoteric perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our sources contrast the healthy change of energy seen in a non-player, where energy flows and permeates, but still maintains clear borders, with no holes, with the split divided state of a player. That player state with the splits and holes is what allows any guests from outside, as they put it.
The entities we talked about.
Right. Now, for the hardcore player, the description is of an unnatural connection. They are completely tuned into the game, almost like wearing glasses with black walls that prevent them seeing anything outside the game world. They're described as being completely disconnected from their body, their being, their environment, their outside world, just totally immersed and cut off.
Wow, like blinders. And what about the person who's managing their play? Where do they fit on this spectrum?
The managed player, on the other hand, still retains the ability to gradually reduce their playtime. They can consciously choose to step back. And this stepping back leads to other occupations, other interests, other habits, hobbies, even jobs starting to emerge or re-emerge in their life, things that pull them back to a real life outside the game.
So there's still that awareness and ability to disengage, to choose other things.
Exactly. They haven't lost dominion.
Which brings us then to the really critical question. If someone is heavily addicted, if they've lost that dominion, is it possible to reverse video game addiction from this specific perspective? What do the sources say?
Well, the sources convey a very strong warning here. It's described as almost impossible by himself for a person.
Almost impossible by themselves.
Yes, they really emphasize the urgent need for family members who are aware enough of the danger to take decisive action. And this might even involve pushing with some force because the addicted person will oppose. They'll likely be angry and completely disagree to disconnect because of that very strong established connection with the entities involved.
So external intervention becomes absolutely paramount in those severe cases.
Yes, that's the strong implication. And because of that difficulty, the core message delivered is really that the biggest thing would be to prevent it in the first place.
Prevention is key.
Absolutely. Prevention is paramount, especially when it comes to children, because the addiction is said to create permanent changes on his brain.
Permanent changes.
Yes, changes which can reduce his abilities and potentially have irreversible long-term effects on the human brain, and especially on a child brain, which is still developing. The source concludes with a really stark reminder. Video games only look a game, but they are not at all. They are extremely serious.
Wow. Extremely serious. As we wrap up this deep dive, then, it's clear we've explored a truly unique and perhaps unsettling lens on video games, revealing layers of influence from, well, unexpected sources right from their very creation, apparently, through to their profound energetic and psychological impact.
Yeah, and if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights the importance of understanding not just what we consume, but how it potentially impacts our energetic, our mental, even our subliminal selves. Particularly when it comes to activities like gaming that can create these deep, almost unnoticed connections. Awareness really does seem to be key here.
It really does. And, this raises a really important question for all of us, I think. If something as seemingly innocuous or everyday as video games can potentially have such profound unseen effects, according to these sources, what other everyday activities might be influencing us in ways we're not even aware of?
That's a powerful thought.
And, maybe more importantly, how might a deeper awareness of our own energetic and subliminal well-being empower us to navigate the world with greater dominion over our own experience? Something to think about.